Is the sheen of the three-pointed star fading? Has stiff competition from software-forward Chinese brands dealt Mercedes a knockout blow?
All foreign automakers who have been operating in China were hit hard by this price war.
And has the German heavyweight's own strategy of luxury first simply not paid off?
Mercedes have pushed far too high up market.
What went wrong for Mercedes-Benz? And can the falling star rise again?
We have a rock-solid balance sheet to take on the next phase of transformation.
Rev delves in. 2025 was a turbulent year for Mercedes-Benz. A 57% plunge in operating profits, a 9% dip in global car sales, and a 19% drop in sales in China, its most important market. Plus external factors, tariffs imposed by the US totaled roughly $1.2 billion. High energy prices in Europe, a fallout of Russia's invasion of Ukraine, pushed up production costs consistently. And adverse foreign exchange rates that meant earnings generated abroad translated into fewer euros on the balance sheets. While all these factors go some way towards explaining the reasons behind the dramatic decline, they don't indicate when this downturn might end. Indeed, Mercedes' own projections suggest that profit margins will remain compressed in 2026, which raises a fundamental question. Is this a temporary blip, or is it something deeper shifting within the company? To answer this, we need to look beyond the numbers and examine the strategy that shaped Mercedes in recent years.
They made some strategic moves or strategic decisions that turned out to be not like the best. And they corrected some strategic mistakes of the past. In particular, we saw like 4 strategic U-turns within the last 18 months.
The first was Mercedes' focus on the luxury segment, something CEO Ola Källenius had been sure was the right move for the brand under his economics of desire strategy. The company's goal was to sell more luxury cars, focusing on margins instead of volume. It proved to be a tightrope walk that didn't pay off.
The trouble is that luxury is more than just about the sophistication of the car, the price of the car and so on. It's also about exclusivity. You cannot have mass volume presence with luxury because you erode that exclusivity. And so this is a very difficult line to tread for a company like Mercedes, which has, quite a lot of high fixed costs.
That strategy has been largely reversed now, with attention being refocused on volume-oriented offerings like the A-Class. Despite initial hiccups, the A-Class was a success. The first generation sold around 1.1 million units between 1997 and 2004, proving it was a volumes product. But since the car didn't align with the brand's luxury-only strategy, it was being phased out. Now, not only does the A-Class remain in production, a successor is in the works. Mercedes had also positioned itself as a leader in assisted driving. It was the first manufacturer to receive international approval for Level 3 autonomous driving technology with its Drive Pilot system. But with limited demand and regulatory frameworks proving to be slow, the resources devoted to expensive driverless tech have now been reduced and reallocated. Perhaps Mercedes' biggest U-turn relates to its EV strategy. In line with its long-term luxury goals, the brand initially focused on large, premium electric models with significant battery capacity and even more significant price tags. But these only appealed to a very small demographic.
Mercedes have pushed far too high up market. They've tried to sell large SUV style or very expensive sports car style electric vehicles for which there is a limited demand at the best of times.
Then there was the EQ sub-brand itself. Instead of integrating electric vehicles seamlessly into Mercedes' core design language, the company created a separate identity with distinct styling and branding. The intention was to signal a bold electric future, but it diluted one of Mercedes' strongest assets, its instantly recognizable design and heritage. The fallout was dramatic, particularly in China, its most crucial market.
The EV market is a shark tank right now. We have like more than 100 EV brands arising within China and compete against each other. And in this kind of situation, Mercedes decided to not use their biggest asset, like their iconic design, their brand, and just like introduce a new brand and be just one of many.
Mercedes is now reintegrating its EVs into its core brand identity, ditching the EQ sub-brand. It hopes this will revive sales, especially in China. Which brings us to the China conundrum, as it's here Mercedes' mistakes were amplified the most.
Reduction in sales is mainly down to managing the fierce competition in China. So that is where you will find the major part of that reduction, where we don't go for market share at all costs.
For all German car makers, China is a vital market, and one that's embraced the transition to EVs. In 2025, new energy vehicles comprised over 50% of all car sales in China. And its car market is saturated with sleek, futuristic EVs from domestic manufacturers, often priced more competitively than any EVs Mercedes has on offer. Still, discounts aren't an option.
All foreign automakers who have been operating in China were hit hard by this price war. A lot of the value you pay when you buy a Mercedes is connected to the brand. So Mercedes has kind of a problem. If you see a Mercedes with a discount of 30 to 40%, then kind of consumer perception is shifting. Is this really like the status symbol? Is this really the luxury brand, which I always learned it was?
And while traditional German car makers, including Mercedes, suffered growing pains trying to go electric, some Chinese car makers started with a clean slate. Now they're building tech-packed machines that appeal to the average Chinese car buyer, who, at around 30, is 20 years younger than the average German one. In China, cars are often thought of as connected devices, valued for software, interfaces and updates, not just engineering and heritage alone.
In China, German car brands and especially Mercedes are bought for their combustion cars. But when consumers want to buy a software-defined EV, a German brand is not what comes to their mind.
You see some of the sophistication of that coming out of China at the moment. It's quite astonishing. The cleverness in the design inside, the sophistication, the flexibility, just outpaces anything that you see in Europe. And so I think there has to be a lot more work on developing things which the industry has traditionally called surprise and delight features. There's not enough of that inspirational aha moment coming out of the German industry and German design at the moment.
In 2024, Mercedes sold around 680,000 cars in China, down 7% from the year before. The further drop in sales in 2025 doesn't just have to do with the vehicles on offer. It's also a product of China's current economic climate, where a property sector crash and deflation mean people simply aren't buying as many cars as they used to. Though even taking that decline into account, China remains the industry's most important battleground.
China is kind of the ground zero right now of the automotive industry.
Meanwhile, Chinese brands are expanding globally, exporting their EV expertise and proving to be stiff competition for legacy car makers. For decades, German manufacturers relied on their engineering know-how, believing a well-built machine would be successful anywhere in the world. But there is no one-size-fits-all product strategy that works across multiple markets.
Although for many years the car industry has tried to create a more homogeneous global market for cars in the interest of economies of scale in manufacturing, that basically hasn't worked. That we still see strong, at least regional differences in markets.
Which is precisely why, although it's cost-intensive, a brand like Mercedes cannot afford to abandon any powertrain. Under the Trump administration, combustion engines remain crucial in the United States and in emerging markets. Hybrids offer a transitional bridge where infrastructure or consumer readiness is still evolving. And electric vehicles are essential in China, as well as for Europe's climate goals.
We live in a heterogeneous world. Adoption towards electrification in the 150 plus markets that we serve around the world is not the same everywhere. And it is clear to us that for the foreseeable future, minimum the next 10 years, probably a little bit longer, it will be in all of the above scenarios.
If you are a legacy automaker who's active in all those 3 world markets, in China, in Europe, and in the US, you kind of have to develop like 2 different product lines. You have to develop like competitive combustion engine cars, and you have to develop a competitive EVs, and that makes it incredibly expensive. Especially if you compete with like focused players, for example, like Tesla or BYD, who solely focus like on one technology.
Despite the profit slump, not all regions are weakening. Mercedes saw around 17% growth in what it calls the rest of the world, meaning markets outside its core regions of Europe, China and North America. This includes developing markets where demand for premium ICEs and hybrids remains strong, giving the carmaker opportunities for growth and a chance to build back its free cash flow, which at 5.4 billion was significantly less than in 2024. So Mercedes is upbeat.
In this eventful 2025, that 5.4 billion stands out as one of the most solid numbers on cash flow production of any car company. Our net industrial liquidity remains above 30 billion. So we have a rock-solid balance sheet, to take on the next phase of transformation, which will be intense in the next few years.
How does Mercedes plan to get on the road to recovery? The brand has begun deploying its proprietary software in its new cars, starting with the CLA, and it's got an aggressive product lineup ready.
Preparing the biggest product launch offensive in the history of the company, where we launched the first of 40 models that are coming in the space of 3 years. It is about a comprehensive next generation powertrain portfolio, needless to say on the electrical side, but also on the electrified high-tech combustion side.
So, has the 3-pointed star lost its sheen? The numbers point to a structural and cyclical reset. In Mercedes' glory days, engineering heritage and brand prestige could dictate price points. But there's been a paradigm shift in the auto industry. Whether Mercedes can survive these tumultuous times depends on how well it can transform without losing the brand identity that made it coveted in the first place. What do you think? Let us know in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe to Rev.